Hey, how's it going? Welcome to another unboxing video. Today we're going to unbox a Nintendo Switch 2 that comes with Mario Kart World, and we're going to unbox a Nintendo GameCube controller that's meant to be played with a Nintendo Switch 2. On top of the unboxing, we're also going to set up the Nintendo Switch 2 a little bit and show you some of what the transfer process looks like from Nintendo Switch to Nintendo Switch 2. I was very lucky to get my Switch 2 pre-ordered on the day that pre-orders came out, and I'm very lucky that my Switch 2 arrived on launch day because there was a chance that the delivery was not going to be able to happen until the day after, but everything worked out really nicely for me. I am very lucky that I got a Switch 2 pre-order from Best Buy. This is the bundle that comes with Mario Kart World, and I was very curious to see how they would bundle Mario Kart World with this Switch 2. I thought they would maybe add a download code, which is pretty standard, but the way they do it is pretty interesting, and we're going to see that a little bit later in this video. As you can see here, this Mario Kart World full game download is printed directly onto the box itself. There are some versions that came out that was a sticker on a non-printed version, which makes me think that Nintendo decided to add more Mario Kart World full game download versions after seeing the initial interest and honestly some of the pushback regarding the price, because the physical version is $80, or the non-bundled version rather is $80. I think that's kind of a lot. But here we have the Switch 2. There it is, right as soon as you open the box. You might remember there was that GameStop that was stapling receipts onto the front of the box and puncturing the screen. You can see why. As soon as you open the box, the Switch itself is right there. Here we have the left Joy-Con, which is this light, maybe sky blue Joy-Con. It's got all the buttons, it's got all the patent information, all of that good stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about the Joy-Cons later. Here is the right Joy-Con, which was this, I don't know what color you would call this, maybe orange, maybe some kind of red. There's a specific name for this color, I'm sure, but I definitely don't know what it is. This is the Joy-Con that has the home button and the new C button for game chat, which is a new feature on the Switch 2. Now we're going to take out the main console itself, the thing that has the volume button, the power button where you input your game cartridges, the USB-C ports, all of that good stuff. We're going to take it out and take a good look at it. First thing you notice here is me waving hello because of how clear everything is, and there's not really a whole lot on the screen. It's very reflective. I was very surprised by how reflective it was. Oh, there's Banjo-Kazooie on my computer background. This console is very lightweight, doesn't weigh a ton. First thing we're going to look at here is the stand. As you can see, the stand is very different from previous Switch iterations. The reveal trailer showed that it could go really far back, and they were absolutely right. The stand can go very far back and can almost go flat even while you're using it. Here's the tip top of the Switch. As you can see, it's got the power button, the volume button, it's got its exhaust vent, and where you stick in your game cartridges. Let's take a look at the rest of the stuff that comes in the box. This first section that held the Switch and the Joy-Cons, there's a little flap that opens up that gives you the health and safety information. This little packet or pamphlet is very important to read through. It's also got a couple different versions with different languages in it. Super important, you should hold on to it just in case. I've always been one of those people who keeps all the papers that come with a new console just in case, because, you know, maybe there's a guarantee mention or something that might come in handy later down the line. In this first layer of the Switch 2 box, there's also this HDMI cable. This is a very fancy looking HDMI cable. It's got a whole sticker on it that I'm going to show you in a second. As you can see when I flip this bag around, it's an ultra certified cable, HDMI ultra high speed. This is a very, very top class HDMI cable. As you can see, it's got the Nintendo branding on it. It's on both sides of the HDMI cord here. That little Nintendo logo, you'd love to see it. Also in this first package, there are the two wrist attachments. There's a word for these things and I cannot for the life of me remember what they are, but these are the things that attach to your Joy-Con so that you can clip them onto your wrist or fit them onto your wrist so that your Joy-Con doesn't go flying in case you drop them out of your hand while you're using them freely from the Switch 2 itself. As you can see, this particular wrist guard is meant to match with the right Joy-Con because it has that same orange or burnt orange or whatever color you want to call it. But when looking at this and editing it, I noticed that you could actually put these guards on either Joy-Con. There is a plus and a minus on either side to match it with putting it in the Joy-Con itself, like I did just now. This is what would allow you to use either of the Joy-Cons in mouse control. The sensors fit very nicely in the little holes of the wrist guard so that nothing gets damaged while you use it on whatever surface you might be using it on. Here is the left Joy-Con wrist guard, or really just the light blue, because you could put it on either one. These are both pretty durable. They feel like they're made out of metal or really tough plastic, not sure. But I'm going to put this one on as well. As you can see, it's better to put it on the bottom and then squeeze it up at the top. This top part up here is very smooth. It's not meant to provide any resistance while you're using the Joy-Con in mouse mode. Let's get back to what's in the box. There's another layer under this first layer that had the Switch and the Joy-Cons. The first thing that we're going to look at is the controller grip, which you can use to put your Joy-Cons in like you did with the Switch 1. But with the magnets that hold the Switch 2 Joy-Cons together. As you can see, the grip itself isn't particularly fancy. There's nothing inherently special about it, but we are going to take the wrist guards off of the Joy-Cons and attach them to the grip to see what it looks like when it's all together. The Switch 2 Joy-Cons have a different mechanism to detach itself from whatever it might be attached to. There's this button on the back that's pretty big and obvious to find that pushes out whatever it is currently attached to, which the magnets do a really good job of separating from. Once the Switch 2 gets close to the thing it's trying to attach to, the magnets are actually pretty strong and does a very good job of connecting. We're going to do the same thing to the left Joy-Con here as well. We're going to disconnect it from the wrist guard attachment and we're going to stick it into the grip to see what the whole thing looks like and feels like when it's all together. I tried to really slowly approach the grip so that you could see how strong the magnets are, but I didn't get the angle quite right. Even then, you can kind of see how strong it is because there is a click, and now the whole grip is put together, and it feels really nice in your hands. The ZR, ZL, L, and R buttons are much bigger. They take up a bigger portion of the top of the Joy-Con. The buttons are a little bit flatter, and the buttons that you use to push the Joy-Cons away from what it's attached to, they're not really inhibited by anything on the grip. This is a very well-made controller. We're going to put that to the side for now, and we're going to keep digging through this box to see what else is included. The next thing we're going to look at here is the power system, or the power adapter, and how it works. In this little baggie here is the first part of the power adapter. It's a USB-C cord where both sides are a USB-C. One connects to the power brick and the other connects to the Switch itself. It's very neatly wound up. I'm going to show you both sides to show you that it is a USB-C on both sides of this cord. I'm going to show you the power brick now. It's a pretty standard power brick. I don't know its power output or whatever it might be, but as you'll see in a second, it's got everything you need. It doesn't take the 3-prong power outlet, it's just a 2-prong power outlet. All that patent information, all that good stuff is on the back. And as you can see, it's got that USB-C port that you need to stick one side of that cord I just showed you into. Moving on to the last thing that's in the Switch 2 box itself is the dock. This is the Switch 2 dock that is significantly improved from the Switch 1 dock for a number of reasons. It's got a fan built into it now, it's bigger, and I really like the Switch 2 logo on the front. I'm a fan of the Switch 2 logo. It's simple, you know, it doesn't need to go crazy. But the back of the Switch 2 is pretty much identical to the Switch OLED dock, which was an improvement from the original Switch launch dock. We're going to take a look at it right now. It took me a little while to figure out how to get this back shell off, but as you can see, I popped it off. It is not attached. It comes off willingly. It is made with the intention of being taken off so that you can finesse your wires in a way that makes the most sense. It's got the AC adapter port, it's got the HDMI output, and it's got a LAN cable input. It's also got 2 USB ports on the outside of the dock. These are probably meant for one wired controller or to charge your GameCube controller or your Pro controller, or use the camera with the new game chat feature that they want you to use the camera with. That's where you would plug it in, on the side of the dock there. And that's everything that comes included in the box itself. We're going to look through the rest of the box to see if there's anything left. There isn't. So I'm going to try to put all this back together and put it to the side so that we can open the next thing that we're going to do in this video, which is that GameCube controller. Big shout out to Nintendo for this also being delivered to me on launch day. I'm going to clean up this a little bit here just to keep things nice and neat. There's a lot of plastic all over the place after opening the Switch 2, but this package here has that GameCube controller. I will let you know now that the initial part of this unboxing isn't particularly elegant. This tape that Nintendo uses for their packaging is very sturdy and very difficult to rip. I could have went and got scissors, but I feel like that would have taken too long, so I do kind of brute force my way through this initial box, but not the box with the GameCube controller in it itself. Here's where I get a little frustrated and I'm like, alright, you know what, let's just rip this. I can rip paper. Who can't rip paper? So I rip through the top here to get through the rest of it. Don't have to deal with that duct tape anymore, and there is that wonderful Nintendo Red with the GameCube controller within it. I'm going to take it out as neatly as I can, and unfortunately, once I first was able to look at it, this reveal here isn't as pretty as I wanted it to be because I don't know what happened when they put this package together, but the box ripped. There's a little bit of ripped cardboard within the package itself. No idea how that happened. Very disappointing, but it is what it is. Let's go ahead and open this up as neatly as I possibly can because I do want to do a somewhat of a good reveal for the GameCube controller itself. This plastic bit I feel like was supposed to be attached but probably wasn't. And there's that rip. I do try to put it back, but it clearly doesn't work. I'm not sure if the controller itself was meant to be in that plastic. This might have been a repackaging. No idea what happened with this particular GameCube controller, but here it is, the GameCube controller. It feels really good in your hands. The L and R buttons do the right thing. It's got all the buttons you need for the Switch 2. Apparently has no juice because the home button didn't work. On the back here, that Nintendo is indented, but the rest of that information isn't like it is on the standard GameCube controller, which was disappointing to me, but again, it is what it is. This isn't a perfect recreation of a GameCube controller. In the very back of the packaging, there is its charging wire. It's just a standard USB to USB-C. The USB part is meant to be put into your Switch 2 dock, and the USB-C is meant to go into the top of that GameCube controller so that you can charge it. It is a chargeable wireless controller, but you can of course use it wired if you just keep it connected to your Switch, or your Switch 2 rather. I'm going to clean up this station now so that we can do a little bit of assembly here. I want to put together the Switch 2 by attaching the Joy-Cons to it, putting it into the dock, putting all the plugs in the back, all of that good stuff. I'm going to get rid of this last bit of plastic here. I'm going to grab the Switch 2, I'm going to grab the dock, and I'm going to put that Switch 2 into the Switch 2 dock to see how nicely it fits. And of course, naturally, it fits very nicely. On the bottom of the Switch 2, there are these rubber stoppers. Some of them were working better than others to keep the Switch 2 dock in place. The ones on the right were, the ones on the left weren't, which I thought was interesting. Not sure why. I'm going to take apart the Joy-Con grip here, take out the Joy-Con 2s, or whatever their proper name is, and attach them to the Switch 2 itself. The magnet does a really good job of clicking them into place. It feels very nice, and I'm very excited to pull the Switch 2 out and take a look at it. You can see on my face how excited I am to see how nice the Switch 2 feels. It feels really good in your hands. It's definitely bigger than the Switch 1, and the Joy-Cons feel really nice too. I'm a big fan of the buttons. We're going to talk a little bit more about how the Joy-Cons feel in comparison to the previous Switch, but for now I want to finish assembling the dock the way that I like it, or really the only way that I'm going to be able to set it up is the way that they want me to, which is by taking out the back here, putting in the AC adapter, and that HDMI cord using that very fancy HDMI cord that they provided. I'm going to take all of those cords that they gave me and I'm going to untwist their little twist ties so that we can assemble this whole thing properly, starting with the USB-C and the power brick and the AC adapter in its entirety. Now is as good an opportunity as any to remind you to like this video if you're having a good time watching me put the Switch 2 together, and hit that subscribe button if you want to see more stuff. I'm not really good at this self-promotion stuff, but analytics say that it's important to say these kinds of things when you're making a video, so if you haven't already done so, please consider doing so. It means a lot to me. Now the power brick and the AC adapter is set up, we're going to take the other end of it, we're going to stick it into the back of the dock where the AC adapter port is. Click, nice and easy, love that. Now we're going to go ahead and unwind that HDMI cable, and we're going to stick that into the back of the Switch 2 dock as well. Our very fancy, very ultra high grade HDMI cable. For some reason, when I first opened it, I thought it was an NVIDIA HDMI cable, but editing this video, I realized that it just says ultra high grade something something, which is, it's kind of funny. While the Switch 2 can output in 4K and 1440, because of my streaming setup and whatnot, I will not be able to play it very often with this resolution, but thankfully, with this incredibly capable HDMI cable, I can just separate it from my capture card and my PC and just play it direct to my monitor, and it'll play beautifully. I'm very excited to do that every once in a while. I'm also going to go ahead and set up the GameCube's controller wire as well, by plugging in the USB into the side of the dock so that I can charge the GameCube controller and start using it. I'm a little disappointed that it wasn't charged, but I guess it is a bad idea to charge it while it's in transit, or to have it charged before you ship it over basically the entire country. I was a little on the fence of getting the GameCube controller because I already have a GameCube adapter from the Wii U days, so I've already been playing a bunch of games with my custom GameCube controller, so this isn't really like a new experience playing any games with a GameCube controller, but I do miss that original purple. You know, there is a charm to that original purple from when the GameCube initially came out that definitely ties into a lot of nostalgia for me. So I feel like it was still worth it. You know, I haven't played a ton of games with it yet, but I am excited to play more and more, and I'm very excited for more games to be added to the GameCube Online app whenever that may happen. Now we've got the dock pretty much set up, I'm going to go ahead and plug it in so that we can start charging the Switch 2 properly. It is plugged in currently. I'm going to put the Switch 2 with its Joy-Cons into the dock to see if it charges. And it is charging. Yeah, there it is. So I'm going to let it charge for a bit, and then we're going to take it out, and we are going to set up the Switch 2. It's been charging for a bit. I'm going to go ahead and take it out of the dock. It greets me with this screen, which is the initial setup screen. We're going to go through a couple different prompts. We're going to agree to a couple terms and conditions, and we're going to get everything transferred over, or as much as we can, transferred over from my Switch 1 to this here Switch 2. It asks you a bunch of things like the language you want the console to be set in, where you are. I picked the Americas. You have to read the end user license agreement and accept it. You have to also set up an internet connection so that you can get that day one patch. I'm sure it's old news by now, but you did need a day one patch or an update to be able to use the Switch 2 at all, which was Nintendo's way of preventing people from playing the Switch 2 early, which I feel like was pretty smart. While you're going through this setup, it's actually downloading the update in the background. It explains a bunch of different ways that you can play the Switch 2, like using the stand, using it wirelessly, using the Joy-Cons separate from the console itself, all of that good stuff. So I'm going to follow along with everything that they say, just to, you know, play along with acknowledging all the different play styles and whatnot. This isn't necessary, but it does do a good job of explaining. Maybe this is necessary, actually. I went along with it because I thought it was fun, just to see all the things that they want you to do through the setup, like understanding how the Switch 2 can be played. But now that I'm looking at it, as I record this over the edited video, it feels like it was necessary. This is, I guess, a necessary part of how you play. From here, though, I'm going to swap to putting the Switch 2 into the dock and recording it using my streaming setup. Everything that's happening now is still just setting up the console, like downloading or implementing that system update, going through things like transferring data over from the Switch 1. This section was pretty time consuming, so I stepped away for quite a bit. But, you know, you can watch it if you want. There's not really anything nothing really entertains you while you transfer everything over from your Switch 1 to your Switch 2. A lot of this is just avoiding having to use the save data cloud while you're, you know, downloading certain games that you might have had installed on your Switch 1 or whatever. I'm not sure exactly what gets transferred over wirelessly, but a little bit later on we're going to talk about we're going to look at how photos from the original SD card in your Switch 1 get brought over to your Switch 2. While this is all going on in the background, please let me know what your most anticipated Switch 2 game is, and if you could pick a sequel to a game or a new game to come to Switch 2, what would it be? I'm very curious to know what people want out of their Switch. Me, personally, I'm very looking forward to Donkey Kong Bonanza. It looks really, really good. The Direct looked really good as well. This is being recorded after the Direct came out. Kirby Air Riders also looks really, really good. I'm very excited for both of those games. I'm also excited to see what else is coming out. You know, this year is Mario's 40th anniversary. I feel like there's a lot they could do, and I hope they do as much as they can to celebrate Mario's 40th. They did a really good job with the 35th anniversary. Hopefully they go just as hard, if not harder, for the 40th anniversary. I feel like that's the right thing to do to celebrate a huge milestone. Now that a bunch of stuff has moved over from the Switch 1, the next thing that they want you to do is to take out the micro SD card that was in your Switch 1 so that you could import your screenshots and videos. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out my micro SD for my Switch 1. I'm going to stick it into my Nintendo Switch 2, and it did a really good job of keeping the quality. Not that the quality was great from Switch 1 to begin with, but of all my screenshots, my recordings, all that good stuff, it is now on my Switch 2, and I'm very happy about that. Now everything has been set up pretty properly. All they want you to do is hit the home menu, and this is probably my favorite part. There's a little jingle that plays once you hit the home button. I really enjoyed that little startup sound. I feel like they should have added menu music as well, just to when you're on the home menu to begin with, but that little startup sound was nice. I enjoyed it personally. Now that everything has been transferred over, this is pretty much identical to the way I had things set up on my Switch OLED. It's a very seamless transition from getting everything on my Switch OLED over to my Switch 2. The only thing that needs to happen now is a ton of different things need to install, which is going to take a long time. But you'll remember that this is a Switch 2 that came with Mario Kart World included. So, on the box, there's actually a very clear way of showing you how to get Mario Kart World installed. All you gotta do is open the eShop. The first time you open your Switch 2's eShop, you are greeted with this screen that asks you if you want to download Mario Kart World, which of course I do. I spent an extra $50 on it, so naturally I wanted it installed on my Switch 2. It didn't show up here, but I imagine that's because there's a huge backlog of things to download. We're going to go ahead and put the Switch 2 to sleep so that I can show you how the Switch 2 looks compared to the Switch OLED and the Switch I got at its launch in March of 2017. Here's the Switch that I got from March of 2017, here's my Switch OLED, and there's my Switch 2. I bought Deltarune and played a little bit of Deltarune because it came out on the same day as the Switch 2 and I couldn't help myself. I definitely wanted to see how my Switch OLED stood up against the Switch 2, and the entirety of the Switch OLED fits within the Switch 2, screen and all. It's very impressive to see how big the Switch 2 is, and it still feels smooth. It doesn't feel nearly as bulky, even though it looks definitely bigger than the Switch 1. Now I'm going to take apart the Joy-Cons so that we can compare them to one another, comparing the Switch 2 Joy-Cons to the Switch OLED Joy-Cons. I'm going to start with the right Joy-Cons. The first thing here is that the A, B, X, Y buttons are bigger on the Switch 2 Joy-Cons, and they're flatter. They don't protrude as much in comparison to the Switch 1 Joy-Cons, which I really like. Like I mentioned earlier, the R and the ZR buttons are much bigger. They take up more of the Joy-Con, and I'm happy about that. I like that. It feels better in your hands. The left Joy-Cons are pretty much the same as well. The directional buttons are flatter but bigger. It feels nice in your hands, like I said. The SL and the SR buttons are bigger as well, much easier to press. And Same thing on the right Joy-Cons, the L and the ZL buttons are much bigger, and it really feels nice in your hands. I'm happy with the way that they designed it and how it feels when you hold it. One last comparison here, I'm going to show you the main consoles themselves with the Switch OLED on top of the Switch 2 and then side by side to show you how much bigger the Switch 2 is in comparison. And that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for watching this video.